The year was 1992 and the location was somewhere remote in Utah. I was driving with 3 of my closest friends to our destination where we would spend the next 3 days camping. We were all in our mid-20s at the time and camping was our way of maintaining our friendship. We all grew up in the same town, but after high school, each of us went to different colleges. Then after finishing college, we all wound up in different states due to our jobs. We used to talk about living together after college, but as we all know, life doesn't always go according to plan. Therefore, getting together twice a year, once during summer and once in the winter, was the next best thing for us. It was snowing quite heavily by the time we arrived at the parking lot of the campground. When we checked the weather last night, we were supposed to get only 3 inches of snow today. The weather forecast was way off. At the rate that it was snowing, I expected us to get at least 10 inches. Still, it wasn't a big deal. We were all experienced outdoorsmen and camping in a winter storm is actually a lot of fun. We set up camp about a mile away from the main campground. The plan was to go about 3 miles into the woods, but with about 4 inches of snow on the ground, we would have made too slow of a progress. We set up 2 tents and that alone took 2 hours. Between the clearing of the snow and building a shallow wall to protect us from the strongest of wind, it was a lot of work just getting settled in for the day. By 3 in the afternoon, the storm cleared and we were free of all responsibilities for the day. It was going to get dark soon, but we all wanted to go for a hike. The 4 of us agreed that we should go for a short walk, and we left our campsite right away. Having lived in Georgia for the past 4 years, the feeling of walking on fresh snow was just something else. It brought back lots of fond memories of our hometown back in Minnesota. We were having a real great time. On the way back to the campsite, the snowstorm had picked up again. We had maybe another half an hour walk to get to our camp, but due to the heavy snowfall, we knew the trip would take us at least an hour. We were walking in a single file, and I was up front breaking the wind. I was going to stop and tie everyone with a rope, so we wouldn't get separated no matter what. I stopped the guys, took out a brand new paracord, then we tied it around our waist, 1 person at a time. Paracords aren't as strong as climbing lines, but it was all we had and definitely better than nothing. We continued walking and the storm got worse by the minute. I could feel the line dragging from one direction to another, meaning we would have gotten separated if not for the paracord tied around our waist. We had walked for another 20 minutes when I stopped to check on the guys. As soon as I turned around, I felt the paracord instantly tightening around my waist. I lost my balance and fell because I was getting dragged on the ground. Not long after, my body was plowing too much snow and the paracord couldn't hold the weight. I felt the snap, came to a stop, and got up as quickly as I could. I tried calling for the guys, but the storm was so powerful that I could barely hear myself shouting. I lost my bearings by this point, and all I could do was to walk in random direction to try to find the guys. Minutes later, I found Brandon, who was walking right behind me before getting separated. He was panicking as he tried to say something. He soon realized that I could barely hear him, and so he grabbed my head, put his mouth right above my left ear, then began speaking. He said something grabbed Ryan and ran toward the direction we came from. I responded, "Let's try to find our bearings first, then go look for Ryan and Christian. Walk slowly and stay close." We soon found our bearings thanks to the unusually tall tree that I saw right before losing everyone. Not long after, we found Christian lying on the ground unconscious. It took a minute, but we woke him up. He was bleeding a little from the dome of his head. It seemed like he hit his head on something while taking a tumble. I told Brandon that he should take Christian back to the campsite and that I would continue looking for Ryan. But Christian said he would rather die than abandon Ryan. So we continued the search together. We searched for about an hour when the storm subsided dramatically and the sky was getting dark. We stopped to talk things over. We spoke about our options and I told the guys that it was best that we went to the main campground to call for help. Christian disagreed and said that we should continue looking for Ryan. But that's what Christian would say. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes not so much. Christian doesn't know how to take a step back. In the end though, cooler heads prevailed and we took Christian to the campground. Storm picked up again soon after, and unfortunately, help didn't arrive until the next morning. The storm had completely cleared in the morning, and about a dozen people went to search for Ryan with me and Brandon guiding them. The search continued for a week, and the number of search and rescue crew doubled by that point, but Ryan was never seen again. During that time, Christian continued to tell the rescue crew that Ryan was grabbed by something big and insisted that it wasn't a bear. He said that it was too fast and nimble for it to be a bear and that it was wearing a white fur. So unless they could prove that polar bears have migrated to Utah, it wasn't a bear. They ceased the search after 12 days. We couldn't even find a single piece of Ryan's gear in all that time, let alone his body. We all came back home, then sometime thereafter, we all gathered again for Ryan's funeral, one that had to happen without his body. I haven't gone camping again since losing Ryan. It's not that I fear the woods, but more like it brings back sad memories. It's different for Christian though. He swears till this day that an unknown creature had taken Ryan, and I believe him too. Something dragged all of us through inches of snow, and that force snapped a paracord rated to 550 pounds. I didn't see the creature with my own eyes like Christian had, but I know it must have been huge, fast, and extremely powerful. I just hope that Ryan was unconscious when the end came. I hope that he didn't feel anything. I truly hope he's in a better place now. I've been awake in this world that we call reality for the past 42 years. I've had childhood, went through puberty, attended college, got married then divorced, so I lived a life that isn't much different from everyone else's. My life was tumultuous to say the least. I could never have deep, meaningful relationships with anyone, and that includes my family. The lack of stability and structure made it impossible for people to truly know me. So why am I like that? That's a good question, but my answer is somewhat complex. Imagine waking up every morning and spotting little differences in your life from the day before. It could be something as insignificant as the color of your coffee table. But at times, the change could be something as shocking as your best friend no longer being alive even though you've met him the day prior. That's been my life for the past 40-odd years. There was a time when I thought I may have some sort of mental disorder. I saw doctors and other professionals for answers, but every single one of them came up with the same conclusion. There's nothing wrong with me. Physically, my brain is firing in all cylinders. I haven't done anything crazy in my life, and so I'm normal as they come. Last week, I was a married man. Now mind you, I don't remember ever getting married. But then I woke up this morning, and as it turns out, I'm now divorced. I now deal with these sudden and drastic changes fairly well. I've done this all of my life, pretending to be someone that I'm not. So life is depressing, but I keep chugging along. I've always wondered how these changes were happening. Am I in the same reality but with the world around me changing? Or perhaps I can somehow move from one alternate universe to another. It's a tough one to figure out, since the changes are normally small and I oftentimes don't spot them for days at a time. However, something different happened about 2 months ago. You see, I woke up in a completely different world. I was still on planet Earth, and therefore I'm not talking about ending up in an alien planet. It was different in a way that the world as we know it has ceased to exist in their reality. I couldn't find a single person on the streets. The buildings around me were fairly intact, meaning the population wasn't wiped out by some sort of war. But nature was already reclaiming the land, and so there were overgrown plants and trees everywhere. I tried starting the cars left on the streets, but all of the batteries in them were dead. Some of them could turn on the interior lights dimly, but the engine wouldn't turn over. Whatever catastrophe might have happened there, it must have happened at least 3 to 4 months ago. There were random bodies on the streets, but not enough of them to account for all the disappearances. I'm not a doctor, but the stage of decomposition was also a clue that the people had been dying only a few months ago. I walked around a little more when I came across a quarantine zone. It was a makeshift facility that was barricaded with fences on all sides, and I saw about 24 large tents within it. I may have been about a bus length away from the main entrance when my body reacted to the stench in the air, and I began walking away from the quarantine zone. I took off my sweater, rolled it into a small ball, then covered my mouth and nose with it. I began to circle the fences to get a better view of the inside of the facility. I didn't have to go too far. There were mountains of bodies inside. I had never seen so many dead people in my life. My body reacted again before my brain even had the chance to comprehend what I was seeing. I think I regurgitated everything I had in my stomach. I walked away from the quarantine zone to get away from the stench, but also to find water. I was dehydrated from vomiting and my body felt heavy, very heavy. A couple of blocks away, I saw a 7-Eleven and entered the store in hopes to find something, anything to drink. There was absolutely nothing in the fridge or on the display shelves. The store was cleaned out long ago. I walked toward the corner in the store and kicked away the debris on the floor. I wanted to sit down and rest a bit. I don't know if it was the exhaustion or the shock, but I soon fell asleep, or maybe I lost consciousness. I can't be sure. When I came to, I was no longer in that reality. I was back in the world where people are still alive. It felt like I was given a second chance in life, but sadly, the feeling didn't last long. In that new reality, I was an addict and homeless. My family had disowned me, and my life was in shambles. There was no way of repairing all the wrongs. Thankfully, that life only lasted a week. But more and more, bad experiences, or rather negative realities, are becoming more of common destinations. The changes used to be much less impacting than they have been lately. I'm truly afraid of where I might end up tomorrow. I send you this story as a way of marking the changes in my life. When I wake up tomorrow, I truly hope I'll wake up in a world where people are living, where life is for the most part normal, and where I can find the trace of my story on your channel. I'm afraid to fall asleep. I fear where I might end up when I wake up.